Hi everyone, and we are back with another chapter of Percy Jackson and the Battle of Labyrinth. Um, so, a lot happened in the previous chapter, and it was scary and very emotional in a way. So, um, you know, without further talking about it, why not let's get together and read chapter 17, The Lost God Speaks. Well, at least with this title, we know that Pan is speaking and Grover and Tyson are okay. We ran until we were exhausted. Rachel steered us away from traps, but we had no destination in mind, only away from the dark mountain and the roar of Kronos. We stopped in a tunnel of wet white rock, like part of a natural cave. I couldn't hear anything behind us, but I didn't feel any safer. I could still remember those unnatural golden eyes staring out of Luke's face, and the feeling that my limbs were slowly turning to stone. I can't go any further, Rachel gasped, hugging her chest. Annabeth had been crying the entire time we'd been running. Now she collapsed and put her head between her knees. Her sobs echoed in the tunnel. Nico and I sat next to each other. He dropped his sword next to mine and took a shaky breath. That sucked, he said, which I thought summed things up pretty well. You saved our lives, I said. Nico wiped the dust off his face. Blamed the girls for dragging me along. That's the only thing they could agree on. We needed to help you or you'd mess things up. Nice that they trust me so much. I shone my flashlight across the cavern. Water dripped from the stalactites like a slow motion rain. Nico, you kinda gave yourself away. What do you mean? That wall of black stone? That was pretty impressive. If Kronos didn't know who you were before, he does now, a child of Underworld. Nico frowned. Big deal. I let it drop. I figured he was just trying to hide how scared he was, and I couldn't blame him. Annabeth lifted her head. Her eyes were red from crying. What what was wrong with Luke? What did they do to him? I told her what I had seen in the coffin. The way the last piece of Kronos' spirit had entered Luke's body when Ethan Nakamura pledged his service. No, Annabeth said. That can't be true. He couldn't. He gave himself over to Kronos. I'm sorry, Annabeth, but Luke is gone, I said. No, she insisted. You saw when Rachel hid him. I nodded, looking at Rachel with respect. You hit the Lord of Titans in the eye with a blue plastic hairbrush. Rachel looked embarrassed. It was the only thing I had. But you saw when it hit him. Just for a second he was dazed. He came back to his senses. So maybe Kronos wasn't completely settled in the body or whatever. It doesn't mean Luke was in control, I said. You want him to be evil, is that it? Annabeth yelled. You didn't even know him before, Percy. I did. What is with you? I snapped. Why do you keep defending him? Whoa, you two, knock it off, Rachel said. Annabeth turned on her. Stay out of it, mortal girl. If it wasn't for you, whatever she was going to say, her voice broke. She put her head down again and sobbed miserably. I wanted to comfort her, but I didn't know how. I still felt stunned, like Kronos' time-slowing effect had affected my brain. I just couldn't comprehend what I'd seen. Kronos was alive. He was armed, and the end of the world was probably close at hand. We have to keep moving, Nico said. He'll send monsters after us. Nobody was in shape to run, but Nico was right. I hauled myself up and helped Rachel to her feet. You were great back there, I told her. She managed a weak smile. Yeah, well, I didn't want you to die, she blushed. I mean, just because, you owe me too many favors. How am I going to collect if you die? I knelt next to Annabeth. Hey, I'm sorry. We need to move. I know, she said. I'm I'm all right. She was clearly not all right, but she got to her feet, and we started straggling through the labyrinth again. Back to New York, I said. Rachel, can you? I froze. A few meters in front of us, my flashlight beamed fixed on a trampled clump of red fabric laying on the ground. It was a rasta cap, the one Grover always wore. My hand shook as I picked up the cap. It looked like it had been stepped on by a huge muddy foot. After all that I'd gone through today, I couldn't stand the thought that something might have happened to Grover too. Then I noticed something else. The cave floor was mushy and wet from water dripping off the stalactites. There were large footprints like Tyson's and smaller ones, goat hooves leading off to the left. We have to follow them. They went that way. It must have been recently. What about Camp Half Blood? There's no time. We have to find them. They are our friends, Annabeth insisted. She picked up Grover's smashed cap and forged ahead. I followed, bracing myself for the worst. The tunnel was treacherous. It sloped at weird angles and was slimy with moisture. Half the time we were slipping and sliding rather than walking. Finally, we got to the bottom of a slope and found ourselves in a large cave with huge stalagmite columns. Through the center of the room ran an underground river, and Tyson was sitting by the bank, cradling Grover in his lap. Grover's eyes were closed. He wasn't moving. Tyson! I yelled. Percy, come quick! Oh, thank God. We ran over to him. Grover wasn't dead, thank the gods, but his whole body trembled like he was freezing to death. What happened? I asked. So many things, Tyson murmured. Large snake, large dogs, men with swords. But then we got close to here. Grover was excited. He ran. Then we reached this room and he fell like this. Did he say anything? I asked. He said, we are close. Then he hit his head on the rocks. I knelt next to him. The only other time I'd seen Grover pass out was in New Mexico when he'd felt the presence of Pan. I shone my flashlight around the cavern. The rock glittered at the far end was the entrance to another cave, flanked by gigantic columns of crystal that looked like diamonds, and beyond that entrance, Grover, wake up, I said. Uh, Annabeth knelt next to him and splashed icy cold water on his face. Splurg! His eyes his eyelids fluttered. Percy? Annabeth? Where? It's okay. You passed out. The presence was too much for you. I I remember. Han. Yeah, something powerful is just beyond that doorway. I made quick introductions since Tyson and Grover had never met Rachel. Tyson told Rachel she was pretty, which made Annabeth's nostril flare like she was going to blow fire. Anyway, I said, come on, Grover, lean on me. Annabeth and I helped him up. Together we waded across the underground river. The current was strong. The water came up to our waists. I willed myself to stay dry, which is a handy little ability, but that didn't help the others. And I could still feel the cold like wading through a snowdrift. I think we're in Carlsbad Caverns, Annabeth said, her teeth chattering. Maybe an unexplored section. How do you know? Carlsbad is in New Mexico. That would explain last winter, she said. I nodded. Grover's swooning episode had happened when we passed through New Mexico. That's where he'd felt closest to the power of Pan. We got out of water and kept walking. As the crystal pillars loomed larger, I started to feel the power emanating from the next room. I'd been in the presence of gods before, but this was different. My skin tingled with living energy. My weariness fell away as if I'd just had a good night's sleep. I could feel myself growing stronger, like one of those plants in the time lapse video. And the scent coming from the cave was nothing like the dank, wet underground. It smelled of trees and flowers and a warm summer day. Grover whimpered with excitement. I was too stunned to even talk. Even Nico seemed speechless. We stepped into the cave and Rachel said, "Oh wow." The walls glittered with crystals, red, green, and blue. In the strange light, beautiful plants grew, giant orchids, star shaped flowers, vines bursting with orange and purple berries that crept among the crystals. The cave floor was covered with soft green moss. Overhead, the ceiling was higher than a cathedral, sparkling like a galaxy of stars. In the center of the cave stood a Roman style bed, gilded wood shaped like a curly U with velvet cushions. Animals lounged around it, but they were animals that shouldn't have been alive. There was a dodo bird, something that looked like a cross between wolf and a tiger, a huge rodent like the mother of all guinea pigs, and roaming behind the bed, picking berries with its trunk, was a woolly mammoth. On the bed lay an old satyr. He watched us as we approached, his eyes as blue as the sky. His curly hair was white, and so was his pointed beard. Even the goat fur on his legs was frosted with grey. His horns were enormous, glossy brown and curved. There was no way he could have hidden those under a hat, the way Grover did. Around his neck hung a set of reed pipes. Grover fell to his knees in front of the bed. "Lord Pan." The god smiled kindly, but there was a sadness in his voice. "Grover, my dear, brave satyr, I waited a very long time for you. I got lost." Grover apologized. Pan laughed. It was a wonderful sound, like the first breeze of springtime, filling the whole cavern with hope. The wolf tiger sighed and rested his head on the god's knee. The dodo bird pecked affectionately at the god's hooves, making a strange sound in the back of its bill. I could swear it was humming "It's a Small World." Still, Pan looked tired. His whole form shimmered as if he were made of mist. I noticed my other friends were kneeling. They had odd looks on their faces. I got on my knees. "You have a humming dodo bird," I said stupidly. The god's eyes twinkled. "Yes, that's Dee Dee, my little actress." Dee Dee the dodo looked offended. She pecked at Pan's knees and hummed something that sounded like a funeral diger. "This is the most beautiful place. It's better than any building ever designed," Annabeth said. "I'm glad you like it, dear." "It's one of the last wild places," Pan said. "My realm above is gone. I'm afraid. Only pockets remain, tiny pieces of life. This one shall stay undisturbed for a little longer. My lord, please, you must come back with me. The elders will never believe it. They'll be overjoyed. You can save the wild," Grover said. Pan placed his hand on Grover's head and ruffled his curly head. "You are so young, Grover. So good and true. I think I chose well." "Chose? I don't understand," Grover said. Pan's image flickered momentarily, turning to smoke. A giant guinea pig scuttled under the bed with a terrified squeal. The woolly mammoth grunted nervously. Didi stuck her head under her wings. Then Pan reformed. I've slept many eons, the god said forlornly. My dreams have been dark. I wake fitfully, and every time my waking is shorter. Now we are near the end. What? But no, you're right here, Grover cried. My dear Satan, I tried to tell the world 2,000 years ago. I announced it to Lasus, a satyr very much like you. He lived in Ephesus, and he tried to spread the world, Pan said. Annabeth's eyes widened. The old story. A sailor passing by the coast of Ephesus heard a voice crying from the shore. Tell them that great god Pan is dead. But that wasn't true, Grover said. Your kind never believed it. You sweet, stubborn satyrs refused to accept my passing, and I love you for that. But you only delayed the inevitable. You only prolonged my long, painful passing, my dark twilight sleep. It must end. No, Grover's voice trembled. Dear Grover, you must accept the truth. Your companion, Nico, he understands, Pan said. Nico nodded slowly. He is dying. He should have died long ago. This this is more like a memory. But gods can't die. They can fade, Pan said. Even everything they stood for is gone. When they cease to have power and their sacred places disappear, the wild, my dear Grover, is so small now, so shattered, that no god can save it. My realm is gone. That is why I need you to carry a message. You must go back to the council. You must tell the satyrs and the dryads and the other spirits of nature that the great Pan is dead. Tell them of my passing because they must stop waiting for me to save them. I cannot. The only salvation you must make yourself. Each time you must. He stopped and frowned at the dodo bird who had started humming again. Didi, what are you doing? Are you singing Kumbaya again? Pan demanded. Didi looked up innocently and blinked her yellow eyes. Pan sighed. Everybody's a cynic. But as I was saying, my dear Grover. Sorry, it formed in my head that Pan is talking. And Didi just randomly starts singing Kumbaya. It is a really sad moment, but imagine, imagine you're on your deathbed, trying to die peacefully, but you're not dead yet. You're talking, giving away the last wishes, and someone in the back sings Kumbaya. Oh god. I really did not expect this momentary comedy from Pan, but here it is. Pan sighed. Everybody's a cynic. But as I was saying, my dear Grover, each of you must take up my calling. But no, Grover whimpered. Be strong, Pan said. You have found me, and now you must release me. You must carry on my spirit. It can no longer be carried by a god. It must be taken up by all of you. Pan looked straight at me with his clear blue eyes, and I realized he wasn't just talking about satyrs. He meant half-bloods too, and humans, everyone. Percy Jackson, I know what you have seen today. I know your doubts, but I give you this news. When the time comes, you will not be ruled by fear. He turned to Annabeth, daughter of Athena. Your time is coming. You will play a great role, though it may not be the role you imagined. Then he looked at Tyson. Master Cyclops, do not despair. Heroes rarely live up to our expectations. But you, Tyson, your name shall live among the Cyclops for generations. And Miss Rachel Dare. Rachel flinched when he said her name. She backed away like she was guilty of something, but Pan only smiled. He raised his hand in blessing. I know you believe you cannot make amends, he said, but you are just as important as your father. I, Rachel faltered. A tear traced her cheek. I know you don't believe this now, but look for opportunities. They will come, Pan said. Finally, he turned back to Grover. My dear Satyr, Pan said kindly, will you carry my message? I, I can't. You can. You are the strongest and the bravest. Your heart is true. You have believed in me more than anyone ever has, which is why you must bring the message and why you must be the first to release me. I don't want to. I know, the god said, but my name, Pan, originally it meant rustic. Did you know that? But over the years it has come to mean all. The spirit of the wild must pass to all of you now. You must tell each other, each one you meet. If you would find Pan, take up Pan's spirit. Remake the wild, a little at a time, each in your own corner of the world. You cannot wait for anyone else, even a god, to do that for you. Grover wiped his eyes. Then he slowly stood up. I've spent my whole life looking for you. Now, I release you. Pan smiled. Thank you, dear satyr. My final blessing. He closed his eyes and the god dissolved. White mist divided into wisps of energy, but his kind of energy wasn't scary like the blue power I'd seen from Kronos. It filled the room. A curl of smoke went straight into my mouth and Grover's and others, but I think a little more of it went into Grover. The crystals dimmed. The animals gave us a sad look. Didi the dodo sighed. Then they all turned grey and crumbled to dust. The vines withered, and we were alone in a dark cave with an empty bed. I switched on my flashlight. Grover took a deep breath. Uh, are you okay? I asked him. He looked older and sadder. He took his cap from Annabeth, brushed off the mud, stuck it firmly on his curly head. We should go now and tell them the great god Pan is dead. I do wonder how many gods must have faded away from existence and now we know about them, but they just are not there. Imagine that. So many minor gods, even so many powerful ones, which who used to be powerful long time ago, and now they must have faded away, and we don't know when. I'm a bit emotional about it, but I do hope we take this up as a message that the world is a horrible place, and even if a god doesn't want to stick around it, why are we? That is so not the message. The message is please grow more plants, and seriously, there is a thing as global warming, and take care of nature. That is the message from this chapter, and I think it's really important. If you, as a Percy Jackson fan, cannot figure that out, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.